We're heading back to school, folks, to help these kids out. Let's do it. And the film I am referencing is The Principal with Jim Belushi. This movie was released in 1987. It's an hour and 49 minutes, rated R, and had a budget of $11 million, and upon release it made $19.7 million. And this film was directed by Christopher Kahn, who most notably, looking through his filmography, went on to direct Young Guns after this film. So if you're a Young Guns fan, this gentleman directed The Principal as well. And we got Jim Belushi as Rick Latimer, a teacher with some problems who gets assigned to go to this very violent and troubled school. Louis Gossett Jr. is in this film as Jake Phillips, an ex-football player, professional football player, who came back to his home school to be the head of the security. Ray Dawn Chong is a teacher, Hillary's her name, and Michael Wright plays Victor Duncan, the main drug dealer and gang leader. And I've always liked this film. It doesn't get talked about a lot, but in the 80s we had movies like Class of 1984. If you've never seen that, that came out in 82. That's a really good film about kind of similar subject. It's set in the future a little bit, and this teacher shows up at this school. It's very troubled. The students are basically running the school, and he tries to rectify that. And this was actually the next one kind of teacher, at least ones that I know of. This is the next one in line. And after this, we had Lean on Me, which was based on a true story with Morgan Freeman, where he went into this troubled school and tried to straighten it out using methods that were not looked kindly upon by some. And then, obviously, in the 90s, we had Dangerous Minds with Michelle Pfeiffer. Kind of similar situation. She was a teacher going to this school, that just troubled school, and she's trying to fit in and help the students. And then we have the more action-oriented film in 96 with Tom Berenger, The Substitute, which I do like that film as well. But this film, while it has some action in it, is more about the story. Although, this one, I'd also say, it's not as serious as Lean on Me at all. I mean, it is serious, but not as serious. It's a drama, but more, I don't know, it's kind of hard to say. This movie would have felt, if they would have pushed the violence a little bit more, this would have felt like one of the films in the 70s that was a drive-in film, just with a bigger budget. And in the beginning of the movie, we're introduced to Rick Latimer, and he is at a bar drinking, and he sees his ex-wife, or his soon-to-be ex-wife, come in, and she's having a drink with her lawyer, who she's now kind of seeing that he figures, and he chases the lawyer out of the bar and smashes the guy's car up. And he gets arrested, and the next day he goes to school, and the school board, the principal, and I are trying to figure out what they're going to do with him. And I guess he's been in trouble before. They don't really go into too much, but they decide to assign him to this school and make him the principal. And he's like, "You're making me a principal." And they tell him where, and he's like, "Are you kidding me?" And he really has no choice. It's either this or nothing. And he takes the job begrudgingly. And he shows up to this school. And it's basically a school, the worst kind of school you can think of. The kids are doing whatever they want. Kids are selling drugs in the hallway. Nobody's stopping them. There's gangs running. There's a couple gangs in the school. And there's been murders and people getting hurt. And he shows up. And at first he doesn't care. He just kind of takes a nap in his office, doesn't give a shit. And then one day he takes a look around and he realizes that some of these kids can actually learn something, graduate, and maybe make something of their lives. And we're introduced to Louis Gossett Jr.'s character, Jake. He's the head of security. And he cares to a point, but there's not much he can do. It's just him. And he can't be everywhere all the time. And after Rick has a run-in with a couple of gang members and that, and he decides he's going to make a change. And he gets all the teachers together. He says, "Look, we're going to have an assembly in the auditorium, and I want it this time." And the teachers don't want to do it. They're like, "Are you crazy? You're going to put all these kids in one room, all these gang members? You know how dangerous that is?" And he doesn't care. And he basically just tells the students, no more drug dealing, no more illegal activities in the school, no more. It's pretty much his stance, no more. And Louis Gossett Jr.'s character kind of thinks he's crazy, but he'll go along with it. He wants to clean up the school. He absolutely does, if somebody will help him do it. And the main drug dealer, played by Michael Wright, stands up and kind of just blows him off and walks out. And Jim Belushi, along with, calls Louis Gossett Jr. in, and they kind of get to learn a little bit about each other. And he finds out that Jake used to be an ex-professional football player. He got hurt. He came back to his alma mater to try to help out, and he's the head of security. But he said, not even I can help this school at this point. I just try to keep the peace as best I can, and we'll get through the day. And Rick automatically hires a bunch of other big dudes for security. Everybody has to go to class. He starts instituting these rules that are going to be enforced, and the kids got to listen. And he starts cracking down on the drug dealing and that. And he kind of has a crush on Rae Dawn Chong's character, Hillary. She's a teacher in the school, and she's making headway with some students. And one day, he's getting ready to leave, and one of the students tries to sexually assault her, and he stops it, but she gets banged up in the process. And this is where he really starts cracking down even more. And Victor Duncan, the main bad guy in this story, threatens Rick Latimer, saying, look, you either leave or something bad's going to happen. Pretty much is what he says. And Rick comes up with an idea of trying to make Victor look like the bad guy he really is in front of all the kids, so they'd stop idolizing him or be afraid of him. Just show what the piece of shit this guy really is. And he effectively does that, but then we have our final showdown in the school. The kids these gang members lock Jake in this closet, and they go after Rick, and they have all the doors locked in the school, and they're going to kill him. And eventually, Jake gets out, Rick gets away from them for a little bit, and they end up kicking these kids' asses, and they take back to school. And it's a good film. It's a good, solid R-rated film. And Jim Belushi's really good in it. Louis Gossett Jr. is really good. The whole cast does really well with what they have to do. Yeah, Jim Belushi plays. He was, in the 80s. He did a lot of films kind of like this. He was in the Raw Deal with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he had K-9 later on, and then he had the TV show. I mean, he's been around for a while, and he does well in the role. And Louis Gossett Jr. does really well as this guy who just wants to help his school, but he hasn't been getting help from anybody else. And finally, there's this guy that comes in that wants to help clean the school up. And at the end of the movie, you're happy they win at the end of the film. It's a good movie. It's well acted. Like I said, it's not quite as dramatic as Lean on Me that came out a couple years later with Morgan Freeman. I remember that movie. That movie used to be played all the time on HBO. The Principal is a film I didn't discover till later. I don't remember seeing it when I was younger. I saw it probably in the late 90s. I rented it, and I own it now on iTunes. But it's a really cool. If you've never seen it, it's definitely worth checking out, especially if you like movies like that. Like, I like The Substitute movie with Tom Berenger, and I also like Class of '84. I recommend that movie as well if you've never seen it. But yeah, it's a solid film. It's well directed, and it's well acted, and it's definitely worth your time checking out if you've never seen it. I would give this film an 8 out of 10. Yeah, for The Principal, that's it for me. I give The Principal an 8 out of 10. If you like this video, please give the thumbs up. If you've ever seen this film, what are your thoughts on this movie? Leave a comment down below. Let me know. And if you like my content here, hit the subscribe button. I greatly appreciate it. Leave a comment. I try to respond if I can, if I'm not working, if I'm not busy. But yeah, that's it for me. I hope you all take care of yourself, stay safe, and I'll be back soon with another review. Thanks.